On this Saturday night, expiration date. Canada's COVID-19 support benefits are set to expire. What it means for businesses and workers.
They're the only reason why I'm open. Without those, we would not survive.
Evacuation complete. Ukraine says all civilians have finally escaped the steel plant in Mariupol as the country braces for a renewed Russian assault. Forced to cover up. The Taliban sparks international outcry by ordering all Afghan women to be covered head to toe. Plus, birthday reunion. A mother and daughter separated by war reunite for the first time in 80 years.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. They were a lifeline for countless Canadians during the pandemic. But after today, Canada's remaining COVID-19 emergency benefits are set to expire. These are some of the programs ending this weekend. Topping the list, Canadians who can't work because they or a family member have a positive test will no longer be eligible for government support. Neither will businesses that were hit hard and had received help paying their employees. Those benefits lasted 2 years and cost hundreds of billions of dollars. The federal government points to Canada's record low unemployment as evidence the programs are no longer needed. Abigail Bimman reports on the changes and reaction from businesses.
The owner of this Ottawa restaurant gets cancellations because someone in a party is sick every single day. Add in people not yet comfortable dining indoors, staffing challenges, and rising costs.
With every new wave or new variant, there's a lot of uncertainty because they're telling everybody they should stay home and only go out if they need to. Yet we're expected to be open fully and run a normal business.
Summer Baird hopes patio season will mean breaking even, but she's been relying on federal pandemic supports. Saturday is the last day for new money. Businesses can still apply retroactively.
They're the only reason why I'm open still, because without those, we would not survive.
It is premature to eliminate all of the major support programs.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business is calling for more loan forgiveness from the feds.
Customers have not returned in the same volume that were there pre-pandemic for so many sectors of the economy.
The finance minister's office points to Canada's best unemployment rate in 5 decades and the GDP as indicators of a strong economy.
The time for extraordinary COVID support is over.
It's not like you can just go and, pick another business off the tree.
This advisor says more attention needs to be spent learning what businesses are actually dealing with, the real-world challenges of implementation at the ground level with supply and staffing issues.
What can we do to try to, within reason, maintain these businesses? Because once they're gone, they're gone.
This week, Canada's top doctors said hospitalization rates are starting to decline, along with case counts and positivity rates. Hopeful news with warmer weather on the way as businesses hope more customers will follow. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
More severe weather is on its way to parts of Manitoba, even as hundreds are still recovering from major flooding last week. That province says more than 60 millimeters of rain is expected in some of the hardest hit areas over the next week, along with wind gusts of up to 80 kilometers an hour. Officials say the heavy rain could see water levels rise by as much as 15 centimeters in some already flooded areas. Environment Canada has also issued a severe thunderstorm watches for a wide area along the Saskatchewan border. The Weather Service says there's a risk of large hail, heavy rain, and even a tornado watch in the region. Well, to some rare good news now from Ukraine. That country's deputy prime minister says that all women, children, and seniors have now been evacuated from a steel mill in Mariupol. The plant has been under siege for weeks and remains the last Ukrainian outpost in the strategic port city. As Reggie Cecchini reports, Russian forces are working to complete their conquest of Mariupol in time for Victory Day celebrations.
Called back to be put on display, Russian soldiers rehearsed for Victory Day. The May 9th anniversary marks Russia's triumph over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. The day is celebrated across Europe, but this year it carries new significance. Moscow will look to highlight victories in Ukraine, despite achieving very little. leaving Ukraine's president to issue a warning to obey curfews and air raid sirens, with fear Russia could increase its attacks. Those worries a reality on Saturday, with strikes in the southern port city of Odessa and across the east. The ground started crumbling, the roof was shaking, says this Donetsk resident. This is rebel-controlled territory. The enemy is carrying out artillery shelling and air assaults to strike positions of our troops, says a spokesperson for Ukraine's armed forces. On Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden committed to another $150 million in aid, a move rattling Russia's nerves, leading to more veiled threats against the West. And while Ukraine's president is eager for a diplomatic end, he says Russia doesn't appear to be willing to engage. But for so many, the end came weeks ago. It's a shame to look at this. I lived here for 40 years. 72-year-old Zenita Baranchuk lost everything on March 24th. She now lives in this trailer beside the remains of her home. I never thought the Russian brothers would attack us and do something like this with my Ukraine, she says. Meanwhile, after a phone call on Friday to underscore a joint commitment in holding Russia accountable, both President Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will join their G7 counterparts for a video conference on Sunday, with the invitation extended to Ukraine's president, where sanctions are expected to be on the agenda. Jeff?
Reggie Cecchini in Washington. Thanks, Reggie. Ukrainians are relying heavily on foreign donations to repel that Russian invasion. The country has received weapons, protective equipment, and medicine. And Ukrainians themselves are also providing supplies and transporting them across the country to people most in need. As Crystal Gamansing reports, those volunteers are proving to be a critical link in the conflict.
So we need this equipment.
From gas masks to blankets and everything in between. Ukrainian volunteers have created their own supply chains and delivery networks to support the war efforts.
It's necessary for me, for my family, for my country, because I'm afraid for our life.
Global News was invited into one of the group's warehouses in the capital and witnessed a bustling operation.
We distribute to refugees who are in Kiev, who come from all over Ukraine, from those cities where hostilities are taking place.
In peacetime, supplies for vulnerable people were collected here. Now, in a time of war, everyone is vulnerable. Supplies are most needed in areas cut off or under attack. Volunteers work with partners to select priority items, find the safest times to travel, and which routes to take. Deliveries have also been timed with rescues. The volunteer network has been repeatedly contacted by people looking for safe passage.
We got a lot of phone calls from our friends, from people that we don't know, and some letters, messengers in Facebook. Please help us.
Over the past 2 months, they have driven supplies into Bucha, Irpin, Kramatorsk, and driven out women and children, often under dangerous conditions.
Sure, I'm scared because it's dangerous, we understand it, but we don't have any way. We need to support each other.
A few hours away in Chernihiv, protective vests make their way to those who need them. The liberated city is quiet now, but in March it was completely encircled, and there were fears it would fall.
The war itself is not over. When it is quiet in the city, something inside me motivates me to do more and to continue to do what I am doing.
A chain of like-minded people united by a sense of duty, convinced victory and peace will come. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, Kyiv.
Turning now to the desperate search for survivors in Havana after yesterday's explosion at a high-end hotel. Officials there say at least 26 people were killed, including 4 children and a pregnant woman. A natural gas leak has been ruled the cause of the blast at the 96-room hotel. It did not have any guests at the time because it was undergoing renovations. It was scheduled to reopen this Tuesday. Afghanistan's Taliban rulers have once again ordered all women to wear head-to-toe clothing in public. The law is reminiscent of the Taliban's previous rule back in the 1990s. The militant group says male relatives of women who do not obey will be visited and could face prison time. Most Afghan women wear headscarves for religious reasons, but many in cities such as Kabul do not cover their faces. The Taliban has faced intense criticism from Western governments for limiting women's rights, including keeping girls' high schools closed despite previous promises to reform. Coming up, bad for the brand. A former Conservative cabinet minister reacts to this week's heated party leadership debate. Plus, special delivery, why this pizza lover went to great lengths for a slice. Retired General Jonathan Vance has been stripped of the prestigious Order of Military Merit. The former chief of the defense staff pleaded guilty in March to 1 count of obstruction of justice and was conditionally discharged from the military. That charge came after allegations of inappropriate behavior first published last year by Global News. Those allegations sparked a national reckoning over military culture in Canada. According to a government notice, Vance was stripped of the military honor at his own request. The federal Conservative leadership candidates will gather this week for the party's first official debate. All 6 candidates are expected to be there. And after this week's unofficial debate descended into a verbal brawl, many are expecting more fireworks. Our Eric Sorensen spoke to former leadership candidate Peter McKay on the West Block. So, Eric, what did McKay make of that debate this week?
Jeff, it wasn't even an official debate, but neither was it just an introductory skirmish. The Conservative leadership candidates came out firing. MP Pierre Poilievre, in particular, targeted the former Progressive Conservative leader and Quebec Premier Jean Charest.
The average trucker has more integrity in his pinky finger than you had in your entire scandal-plagued Liberal cabinet.
Mr. Poilievre, during that period, supported an illegal blockade. You cannot make laws and break laws.
Leadership debates are by design a forum for competing visions and tough exchanges among candidates, says one former leadership hopeful. But Peter McKay told us on the West Block that the discussion was at times uncivilized, and that's not good for the Conservative brand.
When it becomes personal, when you see some of the, really pointed, kind of nasty exchanges on display in that debate, I don't think it bodes well. And I frankly, I don't think the overall public impression of Canadians is positive.
McKay says one of the challenges will be to choose a leader who can not only win the backing of Conservatives, but can build broader support across the country to win the next election.
Let's never lose sight of that fact. It's about competitiveness in the next general election. I think that Conservatives have to be, frankly, quite concerned about. 3 elections, a possible 4th electoral loss is very hard to swallow for members of this party.
The party plans 2 official debates this month. The first one is this Wednesday in Edmonton. All 6 candidates are expected to attend, and all eyes will be watching to see if some candidates ease off on personal attacks or double down on them. Jeff?
Eric Sorensen in Ottawa. Thanks, Eric. And you can watch the full interview with former Conservative Cabinet Minister Peter McKay on the West Block. That's tomorrow, right here on Global. Still ahead, export ban, why the cost of cooking oil is going up.
You're watching Global National.
Telecom companies Rogers and Shaw are vowing to push ahead with their proposed $26 billion merger, despite Canada's Competition Commissioner saying he intends to block it. The companies issued a joint statement today, adding they will continue to engage with the Competition Bureau in an effort to resolve the issue. The CRTC has approved the acquisition under a series of conditions. However, it still needs the green light from the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Economic Development. Russia's war in Ukraine has caused turmoil on international commodity markets, raising prices at the grocery store. The latest item affected is cooking oil. Ukraine makes up nearly half the world's sunflower oil exports. And with those supplies stalling, the price for other oils has skyrocketed. As Dan Spector explains, a major move by another player in the global market could have significant consequences here in Canada.
Going up and down the aisles of your local grocery store, there's no doubt you're rolling your cart past dozens of products that contain palm oil. Cookies, chips, hazelnut spread. It's a key ingredient in all of them.
It's in almost everything.
But an unexpected decision on the other side of the world will now have implications across Canada. The Indonesian president shocked commodity traders late last month when he announced his country was halting palm oil exports. Indonesia is the world's biggest producer, accounting for more than half of global supply. But as the war in Ukraine contributes to rising food prices elsewhere, Indonesia went insular, taking the unprecedented step to keep the cost of cooking oil more affordable for its 275 million people.
There is no other oil readily available. Palm is the major oil in world trade.
The halt in exporting comes as other vegetable oils face shortages, including sunflower and rapeseed out of Ukraine and Russia. Canadian canola is down too due to last year's disastrous prairie drought.
That will put not only pressure on the price of palm oil, but it will also put pressure on any other vegetable oils out there, really, including olive oil.
Palm oil production has long been considered environmentally harmful. Its mass producers in Indonesia and beyond bulldoze and burn rainforest to make way for plantations.
Borneo has lost roughly 150,000 orangutans in the past 16 years alone.
Greenpeace does not see the export ban as a reprieve for wildlife, but hopes it's a time for consumers to reflect on what makes up our favorite food items and many cosmetic products.
While palm oil can be produced sustainably, a lot of it isn't.
And as prices of all cooking oils rise, so will our grocery bills. Sylvain Charlebois says this will only exacerbate food shortage issues globally.
Poor countries, which can't really store calories, will be hit first.
The hope is that with good weather, Canadian canola producers can return to normal this season, but with no end in sight for the palm oil export ban, no single country can fill the gap. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Up next, how this woman celebrated her 98th birthday with a very special guest. Welcome back. At 98 years old, Gerda Cole thought she'd never see the daughter she gave up for adoption 8 decades ago. But today, her birthday wish was granted.
It must be I don't know, a miracle.
It is a miracle. Did you think this moment?
I can't think of it any other way.
The woman next to her, 80-year-old Sonia Grist, who tracked down her birth mother to Toronto while researching her family history during the pandemic. She eventually planned a reunion to meet her mother on her 98th birthday. Their story dates all the way back to 1939, when Cole was sent to England to escape persecution of the Jewish population in Vienna. She gave her newborn daughter up for adoption in 1942. Grit has stayed in England ever since, but Cole moved all over the world, eventually settling here in Canada. Safe to say, this is a birthday neither of them will ever forget. Well, how far would you go for your favorite slice of pizza? As Kylie Stanton explains, one Ontario-born man who now lives in BC went to extreme lengths for a taste of home.
The oven heats up, the pizza goes in, and the countdown is on.
I wish we had smell-o-vision, because that's half of the experience.
John Palmer has waited years for this moment. What's another 30 minutes?
I grew up in Windsor, and I always had fond memories of my childhood.
This pizza is one of them, and it turns out he's not alone.
Nigel and I talked about it, on the periphery for years.
Yes, it was fantastic.
But to talk is one thing.
The sauce, the cheese, pepperoni, canned mushrooms.
To taste is another.
I finally stomped my foot and said, we're going to make this happen.
I said, yeah, let's go for it.
Palmer picked the spot.
Antonino's Original Pizza.
And placed the order.
And they arranged to half bake the pizza wrap it, put it in the freezer.
When it was ready for transport, he needed a courier to run it to UPS.
Enter my old high school chum, Jim Jeffs. Call him out of the blue after years of not talking and said, "How are you, by the way?"
Jeffs came through, getting the pies to UPS just in time.
Where Abdul was holding his driver while they packaged everything, got it on the truck, and got it in the air that night.
The next day, after a nearly 4,000-kilometer journey, it was mission accomplished.
You got to be real hardcore Windsor Pizza fans like John and Nigel to pay $350 to have 10 large pizzas shipped.
Then add the cost of the actual pizza.
10 pizzas, $267. This was definitely more of an emotional decision than a financial decision.
But in this moment,
time to eat.
Worth every penny and surpassing all expectations.
Oh, even better. Even better, as you'll find out.
It's incredible. It explains why these two aren't the first to go to such lengths for a slice. Antonino's has shipped to other parts of Canada and the U.S. and has recently received international requests.
We actually got a call saying, "Hey, I'm calling from Dubai. I want 2 medium pizzas shipped out here." And I honestly thought it was a joke.
No, just seriously good pizza, where one bite can take you back in time.
Well done, Windsor Pizza. And thanks for the memories.
Kylie Stanton, Global News, Victoria.
Making me hungry. That is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is Midland, Ontario. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.